am going to start this quick recording on some of the graphing of the conics. Got a few questions about it, so I just wanted to clarify a few things. I just picked one of each, a parabola, a circle, a hyperbola, and an ellipse. So we'll start with the parabola. The parabola should be pretty straightforward. You don't really have to approach the parabola this way. You can kind of factor this all out. Oops, sorry, that's the wrong slide. You could factor this all out, and hold on, I gotta go back. Boop, boop, ba-doop, 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 ba-doop. Stop. All right, there we go. All right, so let's start that again. All right, so like I said, you could FOIL this whole thing out and, do the y squared and all of that, and then do the vertex form and stuff that way. But since it's already in this form, it should be easier for you to figure out what the vertex is. So from this form, because the x is here, it's either going to be a parabola that opens to the left or to the right. Hopefully that is clear. And the center, again, and because it's opening this way, that means it's x equals a, and then it's y minus k squared plus h. So the vertex, or the center for the other things, is going to be hk, so it's going to be 5, -2. Whatever's in the parentheses always comes out, with the squared as the opposite sign. So that's why it's 5, -2. And then we can figure out the axis of symmetry. Again, because it's going to open left or right, the axis of symmetry is going to be a horizontal line. So we're talking about a line that's like y equals 3 or something like that. Now, the axis of symmetry is going to be whatever the y value is from the vertex. So it's -2. And then it's going to, because of this being a negative for a here, it's going to open to the left. So that should be something that you expect. And then the other thing we can find is the focus. Again, for our purposes of graphing these parabolas, you do not need the focus. So it's not something that's going to be an essential, you have to do it for every problem. But I probably will have like one problem like it on the quiz. So for the focus, it's going to be, because it's opening, hold on, let's just think about it. So because this parabola is going to open to the left, the focus is always going to be inside. So it's going to be like kind of right there. It's kind of like the idea where the focus is. So that is going to affect, again, just if you think about it before you do it, it might be clearer which formula to use. It's going to affect the vertex. It's going to make it move over to the left, etc. So that's the x value that's being affected. So it's going to be x, not x, I guess I should put h because that's what it is. So it's going to be for the focus, h plus or minus, not plus or minus. Thinking of, start mixing up your formulas, you do these too much. Thinking of the ellipse and all the other things when it's the plus or minus. But in this case, because it's going to open to the left, you want to do minus, and it's going to be, I think it's called p, but that number is just going to be 1/4a. And then it's the same k. So it's going to be h minus 1/4, oops, sorry, I know what h is. H was 5. So 5 minus 1/4 times a -1/2. That's what a is. So it's 5 minus, actually it's going to end up, it's actually plus, sorry, in the formula. It's plus 1/4. And it's 1/, this is going to end up being half of that is 2, -2. So that's why it's going to end up being a minus, even though it really was a plus, because it's a minus here. So it's going to be 4.25. I'm sorry, 4.5. 4.5 for that focus. And again, in this case, when it's a parabola, there's only one. So it's 4.5, comma, k was -2. All right, so let's see how this is going to look in a graph. All right, so we start just like any other parabola with the vertex. So it's 5, -2. Here's our vertex. Oops, it is. Didn't need that. Oh no, that erased my vertex. So 5, -2. Oh man. Sorry, I don't know how I ended up on this slide. Back. All right, 5, -2. All right, there we go. All right, and then we need the focus. I'll worry about later. So basically, when it comes to this, you can draw your axis of symmetry in. This is going to be my axis of symmetry. X equals negative, Y equals -2. It's this line here. Again, is this super important to the graph? Not really, but it can help you. You have to plot less points because you can just mirror it over the line of symmetry. Now, just like before with the parabolas, you're going to need to pick values to plug in to finish up the graph. Now, when you're finishing up the graph this time, what you have to realize is that because the y is the thing that's squared, that's what you're plugging in for. And because this half is out here, I want to keep these numbers even inside the parentheses. It'll just make my life a little easier. So I'm going to pick 0 and I'm going to pick 2 to plug in. It'll just make the math a little easier. And then when I plug in, 0 plus 2 is going to be 2 squared. So I'll have -1/2. Why is this pen lagging so much? And then it's going to be 2 squared plus 5. So that's going to be -1/2 times 4 plus 5. So that's going to be -2 plus 5. My answer is 3. And then I'll do the same thing. I plug in for y again, but this time I'm plugging in the, what am I plugging in? I'm plugging in 2. So this time it'll be 2 plus 2 in parentheses. So that'll end up being 4 squared. So that's 16. And then half of 16 is -8. Plus that, you get -3. So these are my 2 points I'm going to plot just to give me a better idea, and then I mirror it. So let me plot these in my graph. I have 3, 0. Now again, I mirror, so I'm going to go down this way. And then my other point is -3, 2. So -3, 2, -3. So then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, I'm mirroring to the other side. And this is what my parabola will look like. It's actually not too bad for this lagging pen. All right, and then at this point, you can plot the focus. It will be -4.5 and -2, so it's like right there. Right there. And then the directrix, not that that's important, but it would be this line kind of like right underneath it. And that line would be from subtracting that p, which is the 1/4ia. Next. All right, for the circle, from the equation, you should hopefully be able to figure out the center. The center for this one is 0, and this is 4, and the radius is 5. The circle is much easier. We don't have to worry about any of those extra things, no co-vertices or anything like that. We just need basically the center and the radius. So why isn't that erasing? I don't know. So let's figure out the center and the radius. We have them, 0, 4. So let's plot them. 0, 4, here's my center. And my radius is 5. So I'm just going to count out 5, left, right, up, and down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. Next point is 5 over 1, 2, 3. Then we go 5 the next direction to the right. And then 5 down. I don't know where that one went. Let's bring it back. All right, so that's what it would look like. And then you would just connect these. Just try to etch it. Obviously, it should look circular. So you don't want it to look like a diamond. So try to round it off a bit. All right, so that would be our circle. Next. All right, next is our ellipse. For our ellipse, again, this is the one that's going to end up being an oval, either up either horizontal orientation or vertical orientation. The orientation is going to come from whichever number underneath is bigger. And in this case, it's going to be vertical because it's under the y. So the center here is going to be -1, 3. Excuse me, our vertices are for the major axis. So in this case, because it's under the y, again, A is 7 and B is 3. Remember, they're the square roots of these things. So this is A and this is B. This is B squared, C squared. So the vertices are going to go vertical this time, because that's where the major axis is, because the bigger number is down there. So it's going to be -1, and then it's 3 plus 7, which is 10, and then -1 and -4, 3 minus 7. Our co-vertices are for the minor axis, which in this case is going to go horizontally, and that's going to be -1 plus 3, because this is B. So -1 plus 3 is 2, 3. And then -1 minus 3 is -4, 3. Then we can get the foci. Again, the foci are going to be on that major axis. When it's on the major axis, this is what the foci will look like. It'll be like right up top there, bottom there, like close to the endpoints of the major axis. And therefore, it's going to affect the y value. And the focus for an ellipse is c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So in this case, it's going to be c squared equals 49 minus 9, c squared equals 40, which is 2 root 10. All right, so our focus is going to be, again, this would stay the same, -1, and it would be essentially 3 plus 2 root 10, and -1, 3 minus 2 root 10. Now, the square root of 40 is going to be like roughly, just because 6 squared is 36, so yeah, well, whatever, you know what I mean. There's going to be probably like 3.2, 3.3 or something like that. So that's kind of what we should be thinking as far as adding and subtracting. So let's try to graph this. Excuse me for yawning. Alrighty, so let's start with the center, which is -1, 3. All right, vertices are -1, 10, -1, -4. Co-vertices are 2, 3, and -4, 3. So after that, you can connect the ellipse. Again, the ellipse is more oval-like, but you do want to make sure it looks, you know, smooth edges, circular edges. It shouldn't be like straight lines here. It should look circular-ish. All right, so something like that is how our ellipse should look. This is, again, our major axis. And this, these are my lines. Hold on, I could do a little better than that. This is our major axis, and this is our minor axis, etc. And again, they're always perpendicular. And let's look for the focus. These are my two foci. So it's going to be -1. And then again, this is roughly like 3. I'm sorry, not 3. Let's say like 6.2, 6.3. Let's just guesstimate it. So that means this would be like 9 point something. So it'll be like right here. And then the other focus would be 3 minus 6 point something. So it's like -3 and some change. So it's down here. All right, next one. All right, here's our final one. This is our hyperbola. And for the hyperbola, again, you know it's a hyperbola because it has the minus there. So that's the main difference between our hyperbola and our ellipse. Let's start with the center. The center is going to be, what was that? I'm sorry, I just realized I didn't check on something. That's going to be 5 and 1. The major axis is called the conjugate, excuse me for yawning, the conjugate and transverse axis, but again, I really don't care what you call it. Just be familiar with that vocabulary in case it is stated somewhere. But the reason it's not specifically stated as a major or minor is because the positive axis is the one that's kind of considered like the major axis, the one that we're focused more on because it's the way it's going to open, etc. So in this case, even though 9 is smaller than the 25, that's the main axis because it's the positive one. So in this case, we start with that. And so since A in this case is 3 and B in this case is 5. So it's a little different from the ellipse. So A is still going to affect, in this case, the horizontal because it's under X, and this affects the vertical. So it's going to be 5 plus or minus 3, 1. So our vertices, so to speak, are going to be 8, 1 and 2, 1. Our co-vertices are the ones on the quote-unquote minor axis in this case. And in that case, it just means the one that's negative when it's hyperbola. It's going to be 5 stays, and it's going to be 1 plus or minus 5. So it's going to be 5, 6, and 5, negative 4. The foci is a little bit different with the hyperbola because it's, in this case, first of all, because the y is negative, it's going to open. It's going to be 2 like these parabola situation. We'll have our box in the middle. These are our asymptotes, and they're going to open to the left or right. Now, because of this, when we find our focus is going to be a point that's like and here, like inside of both of these like side opening parabolas, hyperbola. But so let me just clarify. So for the foci this time, I think when I did the video, I might have messed up on this because I wasn't paying attention. But for the hyperbola, the equation to get C is different. Instead of subtracting A and B squared, you actually add them with the hyperbola. So this is going to be C squared equals 9 plus 25. So your C squared is going to be 34 here. So C is the square root of 34. So when you're finding your foci, again, because this is going to open horizontally, the horizontal axis, horizontal value is going to be the one that's affected. So it's going to be 5 plus the square root of 34, comma 1, and 5 minus the square root of 34, comma 1. Square root of 34 is probably about 5.8, 5.9. Excuse me, really close to the 36. And that would be that. So let's keep going and let's try to graph this. When it comes to the hyperbola, what you do is different. You start with the center, which is 5, 1. And we still kind of start off the same where we do our vertices, co-vertices, etc. So we have 8, 1. I don't know why I keep on it. And we have 2, 1. And for our other for our minor, we have 5, 6. Again, this is only minor because it's the negative 1. And 5, negative 4. Now, we do not, if this is our ellipse, we would make our oval right now, connecting those points basically. In a hyperbola, we use these to make our box. All right. Now, our 2 asymptotes are going to be the lines the graph can't cross, and they're going to pass through the diagonals of this rectangle. That's one asymptote. And the other asymptote would go the other way. And should pass through the center, but it's me not having the best graph abilities. And, excuse me. Sorry for yawning. And then what results is going to end up being our 2 hyperbola, which is 2 parts. So it's going to open again, because this is the positive, it's going to open left and right. And essentially, you could just draw your parabola-like U shape on both sides. And you just want to make sure it gets really close to the lines, but it doesn't cross the lines. And that would be it. All right. That's some graph review. I hope that helped clarify some things and etc. for you guys in your quiz.